Matthew's Gospel, chapter by chapter and verse by verse. For the glory of for the glory of for the glory of for the glory of. Welcome to Life is One Day at a Time.com. I'm Minister Chestnut, and thank you for joining me again on another day of life and another day of love. The living is riches and glory. We're back in the Gospel of Matthew. Now, when we left off the last time, Jesus had just left out of his own country, and he could do no mighty works there. Why? Because of their unbelief. So, as we get back into chapter 14 of Matthew's Gospel, we're going to cover a few things. We're going to cover John the Baptist. We're going to cover feeding of the multitude. And we're going to cover Peter walking on the water. This is in chapter 14 of Matthew. At that time, Herod the Tetrarch heard of the fame of Jesus and had said unto his servants, "This is John the Baptist is risen from the dead, and therefore mighty works do show forth themselves in him." See, Jesus was healing folks. He was giving them the truth, and people were just congregating. I mean, they were following him in mobs, multitudes. So Herod, he heard about the fame of Jesus, but he thought it was John the Baptist. Why? Verse 3. For Herod had laid hold on John and bound him and put him in prison for Herodonus' sake, his brother Philip's wife. For John had said to him, "It is not lawful for thee to have her." So, this upset the king pretty bad. He's about to put him to death, but what happened? Verse 5. And when he would have put him to death, he feared the multitude because they counted him as a prophet. And he was a prophet. John the Baptist was the greatest prophet in my book. But, verse 6, but when Herod's birthday was kept, the daughter of Herodonus danced before them, and it pleased Herod. Now, there was a whole lot of booty shaking going on, whole lot of twerking. And there was a whole lot of men around, had come over to party with the king. Whereupon he promised with an oath to give her whatever she would ask. And she, being instructed of her mother, said, "Give me here John the Baptist's head in a charger." Now, here the king and all his buddies, they would have been entertained, and the king promised her anything. And she asked for John the Baptist's head in a charger. What's he going to do? And the king was sorry. Nevertheless, for the oath's sake, and them which sat with him at meat, he commanded it be given to her. And he sent and beheaded John in the prison. And his head was brought in a charger and given to the damsel, and she brought it to her mother. And the disciples came and took up the body and buried it, and went and told Jesus. Now, the king really didn't want to kill John the Baptist, but the king made an oath, and he had to fulfill it. Otherwise, he'd have been shamed before all his buddies, and he couldn't have that. Now, Jesus' cousin had just been killed, and he was most likely was trying to go somewhere and pray. But what happened? Verse 13. When Jesus heard of it, he departed thence by ship into a desert place apart. And when the people had heard of it, they followed him on foot out of the cities. And Jesus went forth and saw a great multitude, and was moved with compassion toward them, and he healed their sick. Now, like I said, they were following him everywhere. Verse 15. And when it was evening, his disciple came to him, saying, This is a desert place, and the time is now past. Send the multitude away, that they may go into the villages and buy themselves victuals or food. But Jesus said unto them, They need not depart. Give them something to eat. Verse 17. And they said unto him, We have here but 5 loaves and 2 fishes. He said, Bring them here to me. And he commanded the multitude to sit down on the grass, and he took the 5 loaves and the 2 fishes, and looking up to heaven, he blessed them and broke and gave the loaves to his disciples, and the disciples to the multitude. And they did all eat and were filled, and they took up fragments that were remaining, 12 baskets full. And they that had eaten were about 5,000 men, besides the women and the children. Now, that's another miracle Jesus had performed amongst the multitude, because he had compassion on them. If they was trying to go back into the city, they'd probably faint. Verse 22. And straightway Jesus constrained his disciples to get into a ship and go before him to the other side, while he sent the multitudes away. Now he fed them, he preached the gospel to them, and now he's sending them home. But he told his disciples to get into a boat and go to the other side. Verse 23. And when he had sent the multitudes away, he went up into a mountain apart to pray. And when the evening was come, he was there alone. He was trying to pray before the multitudes following him, but now he had a good chance to stop and pray. They had just beheaded his cousin, and no doubt they was probably looking for him too. Verse 24. But the ship was now in the midst of the sea, tossed with the waves, for the wind was contrary. And in the 4th watch of the night, Jesus went unto them walking on the sea. He had that power. And when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were troubled, saying, It's a spirit. And they cried out for fear. But straightway Jesus spake unto them, saying, Be of good cheer, it is I, be not afraid. Now, they ought to knew that Jesus could do the unthinkable. And there he was, walking on the sea, because he told them to go to the other side, and he was just catching up. And Peter answered unto him, said, Lord, if it be you, bid me to come unto thee on the water. And he said, come. And when Peter was come down out of the ship, he walked on the water to go to Jesus. Now, did you get that? Peter walked on the water to go to Jesus because he said, come. He gave him permission. All Peter had to do was have enough faith to step out of the boat, which he did. Then what happened? But when Peter saw the wind boisterous, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried, saying, Lord, save me. And immediately Jesus stretched forth his hand and caught him, and said unto him, O thou of little faith, wherefore did thou doubt? And when they have come into the ship, the wind ceased. And they that were in the ship came and worshiped him, saying, Of a truth, thou art the Son of God. I mean, he was being convinced. Little by little, they were convinced that he was the Son of God. I mean, they should have known it a long time ago. All the miracles he had performed, healing the sick, feeding the multitudes. Come on. Verse 34. And when they were gone over, they came into the land of Gennesaret. And when the men of that place had knowledge of him, they sent out into all the country round and about, and brought unto him all that were diseased, and besought him that they might only touch the hem of his garment, and as many as touched were made perfectly whole. Now, he healed, he cast out demons, he raised the dead, he fed the multitudes. Truly, Jesus was the Son of God. Verse 15, Matthew. Then came to Jesus scribes and Pharisees, which were of Jerusalem, saying, Why do thy disciples transgress the traditions of the elders? For they wash not their hands when they eat bread. But he answered and said unto them, Why do you also transgress the commandments of God by your traditions? Traditions of men will make void the word of God. Verse 4, For God commanded, saying, Honor thy father and thy mother, and he curseth or father or mother, let him die to the death. But you say, Whosoever shall say to his father or his mother, It is a gift by whatever that thou might be profited by me, and honor not his father or his mother, he shall be free. Thus have you made the commandments of God none of effect by your traditions. You hypocrites, well did Elijah prophesy of you, saying, This people draweth nigh unto me with their mouth, and honor me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. But in vain they do worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men. See, instead of following the word of God, they were getting down into the traditions of men, which makes void the word of God. You got to watch that. And we're out of time. Join me again next week when we continue with Matthew's Gospel. hard is it for everyone everywhere to come together and pray? Stop, take a minute, pray, rejoice. Don't forget, lifeisonedayataTime.com comes on every week with Minister Chestnut, live and in living color. So be there every week, because Jesus is our rock.